Welcome to another Proper Form video, where we explore various exercises with an in-depth focus and look at the different techniques that we can use to help elevate your performance, optimize your workouts, improve posture, and also prevent injuries. In this episode today, we're going to unlock your true potential with the correct technique of a fundamental exercise, the tricep dip. So your tricep dip is a compound exercise that primarily targets the triceps. But it does also utilize a little bit of shoulders, chest, back, core, and even quads, depending on the version that you are doing. The reason that I think that this is such a fundamental exercise is that it helps you with an awful lot of pole and aerial work, particularly anything coming from a strong hold position. And if you're newer to fitness or have things like hypermobility, this is going to be a position that's really difficult for you to nail. So the tricep dip is actually a pushing exercise where the goal is to load the triceps in their longest phase, which is when they are bending down on the floor, and then use the power in the concentric phase when we are lengthening them to push back up to the top. So how should you do a tricep dip? First of all, you want to start by looking at your hand positioning. This is one of the most important things you can address when it comes to your tricep dip. So think about spreading your fingertips and having your arms outstretched in front of you. When you place your hands down on your mat, they should not be too wide apart or too far in front. You want to be in a position that I like to refer to as kissing thumbs. This means that my hands are close enough to kiss at the thumbs if required. If you're not sure where your shoulder width apart is, then a top tip that I can give you is to close your eyes, extend your arms out, spread your fingers, and imagine you're pushing the wall away. Now open your eyes and take a look at your hands. That is instinctively your shoulder width apart. So keep your hands in that position as you progress on to developing your tricep dip exercises, as this hand engagement is absolutely key. Welcome to another Proper Form video, where we explore various exercises with an in-depth focus and look at the different techniques you can use to elevate your performance, as well as optimize your workouts and improve your posture, helping to prevent injuries. In this episode, we're going to be unlocking your true potential with correct technique in a fundamental exercise known as the tricep dip. The tricep dip is a compound exercise that primarily targets your triceps. You guessed it. But it also utilizes a little bit of your shoulders, your back, your core, and potentially quads, depending on the version that you are executing. The reason I think that this is such a fundamental exercise is that it's going to help you with an awful lot of your pole work and also off the pole work when it comes to things like headstands and handstands. It's also going to be very integral in those bigger moves later on in poles, such as handsprings and big power explosion moves. The tricep dip is a pushing exercise, and the goal is to load the triceps in that eccentric phase when they're at their longest down here, and then use the concentric phase to push back up and explode away from the floor. So how exactly should you do a tricep dip? To perform it correctly, you're going to want to start with your hands being in the right position, using kissing thumbs. So you can outstretch your hands in front of you, spread your fingers, and think about pushing a wall away for you to get the correct positioning for your hands. Then place them down on the floor, making sure to stack your elbows and shoulders over in this position. From there, we're going to extend our legs back into a plank and lower ourselves all the way down to the floor, keeping the hips away and the elbows in. I'm then going to drive back up again, pushing all the way into a good shoulder position. You want to think about this being a more of an explosive movement. As we bend down towards the floor, we want to think about nips before hips. So you don't want to be dropping your middle of your body down too far. You want to think of it as a diving action, chest towards the floor, and then pressing all the way back up with the length fully in the triceps. Remember to try and breathe all the way through and use your core bracing that you should be a little bit more familiar with. And I would definitely recommend inhaling on your way down to then have your exhale to help you on your way back up again. So remembering that proper form is crucial for maximizing your effectiveness of this exercise. You could have been doing them for a little while and maybe they haven't progressed as much as you wanted them to. Or maybe you haven't got a full tricep dip yet on a plank and you're wondering why. So we're going to take a look at the most common issues first and then dive back into the tricep dip itself. So as I mentioned, hand positioning. Making sure you have the correct hand positioning with shoulders stacked, fingers spread. A lot of people will complain of wrist pain when doing tricep dips and work in a plank. Now this is usually for two reasons: that they keep their hands closed together like this, meaning there's no muscle activation, and also potentially that they are hypermobile. So by spreading those fingers out, gripping them into the floor, you're getting a lot more muscle help as you lower down into your tricep dip. So if you find that you experience wrist pain after a number of repetitions and that's the thing that's holding you back, first of all, check out that hand positioning. Maybe try to understand if you are suffering from hypermobility and look for a couple of different options, as if the abs and the triceps have got more energy in them and it's just your wrists holding you back, then we can definitely use things like our knuckles on the floor instead, or even holding onto the edge of a yoga block just to create a little bit more space in that wrist joint itself. Another very common issue is that people, especially when doing a modified version, or more so when doing a modified version than the others, will have their elbows come down towards the floor rather than loading the weight over the wrists and the hands and controlling the triceps into the body. So what happens is the elbows end up coming down onto the floor and we're not using core, triceps, or anything that's desired for a tricep dip in this position. It usually comes from a place of a bit of fear and maybe lack of belief and also lack of understanding. So if you're worried about face planting the floor, then I want you to make sure you catch yourself at the end of the movement and look to explode back away from that floor again. These will get better. You will not face plant. Your brain will stop you from doing that. So embrace the energy on the way down, because gravity is actually helping you with the first part. The work of a tricep dip comes from the push back up again. Something else to be aware of in the upper body is shoulder position. Now we have a whole host of videos that are going to help you understand your shoulder positioning better and also get rid of any dysfunction and kyphosis that you experience here. If you know you have a slightly rounded upper body posture and you suffer with kyphosis, then watch for that in your tricep dips. I can show you a perfect example because this is definitely one of my bad habits myself. So as I go down to the floor, you'll see my shoulder will want to ground over this way rather than keeping back in a nice open position. It's something that I have to work very hard at to make sure I maintain the proper technique in these exercises. Next is the lower back, and the body positioning that the lumbar can have can really impact the amount of weight and load that your arms are taking. When you're coming into a tricep dip, You don't want to have an arch in your back. Regardless of whichever position you use, we do not want that arch in our lower back. It's going to put a lot of strain in the lumbar area, but also mean that we're not effectively using our core as well as we should. So make sure that you understand your core bracing and that you can apply it to your plank position before you start to lower down through your tricep dip. Keep focus on having the elbows wrap inwards and keeping a very close body positioning, because most of the time we might be holding pole, silks, or even a hoop underneath our arm, and we want to keep a nice firm point of contact. So as you lower down, and one of the most common mistakes made are that people make their elbows go out to the side or let their elbows go out to the side. And that is such an easy correction, in that you want to just think about where the pit of your elbow is facing. If it's facing forwards, then my elbows will point backwards. If they're facing out to the side, then my elbows will point out to the side. Now, the difference in that small movement, about 45 degrees of angle, is that it goes from changing it from a tricep exercise into a chest exercise. And then finally, one of the other most common problem areas is head positioning. And because you know you want to get down to the floor in this exercise, your head starts to move several inches far forwards of its main position and tries to drag you down to the floor. The problem being that as soon as you reposition your head that far forwards, that's going to create additional load through the back, through the shoulders, through the traps, and it's going to make it harder for those muscles to help you with the actual tricep dip itself. So with all that in mind, let's take a look at tricep positioning again. And I'll cover the different regressions and progressions that you can start adding into your practice. So I'm going to start with the main tricep dip itself. Hands in kissing thumbs, spreading those fingers and gripping my fingertips into my mat. My arms are locked out and I'm pushing down through my shoulder blades. I'm going to take a moment to adjust my core and start to switch that on as I extend my legs out into a full plank position. From here, I'm going to make sure my elbows are rotated correctly, and I'm going to enjoy the way down because gravity is my friend here. So elbows pulling in, keeping my tummy muscles pulling up and away from the floor, saving enough energy at the base of the movement to push back up again, and not hanging around too long at the bottom. Try and keep it smooth moving all the way down, all the way up. Now, this position itself can be very difficult and challenging to master, and you want to make sure that you're getting nose or nipples to the floor before you level up any of the options. So let's take it back a couple of steps. Your kneeling plank will be one of your best positions to start learning this move in. Takes off a lot of the extra weight and allows you to focus in on diving down through the chest and then pressing back up again. If you know that you are doing what I like to call the slow motion face plant, then something that you can do is add anything underneath your hips. A block, a cream cake, I don't mind, something that you can sense underneath you that you're not going to squish, and that you can use to be a sensor for if you start to drop your hips down too low. It's going to remind you that you're not sinking through your hips and resting down through here, and that you should be maintaining correct core engagement. If the kneeling plank option is still too much for you, then what I want you to do is go for a box plank. So this is, I'm also going to refer to it as bear pose in different videos, but effectively a box shape position. So making sure that knees are under hips and that shoulders are above wrists. This is the body positioning where you're likely to end up with elbows on the floor. So do make sure you set your weight forwards and you practice keeping your elbows in. Your hips quite naturally will stay further away from the floor in that option. When you're setting up the box or the kneeling plank, it can sometimes be a good idea to go from a plank position first and then step it down so that you know where you're going to want to end up with this exercise and you can position everything along the way. Now, for those of you that are more comfortable with your tricep dip and you'd want it to progress a little bit more to get some more strength in that area, then you're going to look at removing points of contact. You're going to take a foot off the floor, and my preferred way of doing this is in like a little down dog sequence. When I've got a leg lifted off the ground, I'll keep it off and then perform a tricep dip with a little bit of help from that extended leg, but also a little bit more difficulty because it's come off the ground. So for this one, I'll start in a down dog. I'll extend that leg up and then I will travel into my plank, lower down, and only bring that leg down as I swoop up into more of a cobra position, or I may hold it down here, keeping hips and quads off the floor. You can also work on poses or moves. I think in yoga they call it like a dolphin press up, where you're in a more inclined position in your down dog and you aim to do your tricep dip through that angle as well. There's lots of options available to you. It really is just about practicing the one that suits you best. So sometimes you may be at a point in your practice that you're getting good at the current level that you're at, but you're not able to do the one above. So then you can do something that I like to call the in-between, where you use parts of two different exercises to make it into one. So this would look like you potentially starting in a full plank and then adding your knees in as you lower down. So to come back up, I'm going to add my knees and then I'm going to press. Again, in the same way you could do this with the lower level exercises, you could also do it to make things harder, to make things easier. And this way you're always able to tailor the exercise based on your needs at that moment in time and mean that nothing ever gets stagnant. You don't find it too easy. Another useful tip for both progressing, but I do find I use this a lot to just isolate one tricep on one side, is to do a staggered grip position. So that's going to look more like one hand in front and one hand back in a tricep positioning. If I do that, I'm able to be in more of a press up in the front arm and more of a tricep dip in the arm that's closest to me. This allows me to focus in on that technique and on that body positioning on that side, and gives the other side a break. So it's like doing one-sided tricep dips in a sense. So if you're noticing that your tricep dip's a bit uneven, you come down and you kind of rock side to side to get back up again, then the staggered tricep dip is going to be a really good one for you to practice, because it's going to give that one side that needs a little bit more work the attention that it needs, and means that the other side isn't going to compensate and take over when you're using both triceps at the same time. Practice makes perfect, but even more importantly than practice is practicing perfectly. So keeping that proper form throughout. Take videos, take pictures so you can watch them back and you can analyze what is going on. Tricep dips are challenging, especially if you are not used to them, and even when you are, they can still be difficult. They are something that I find I need to consistently do, because if I leave them alone for even just a week, I can definitely feel the difference in my triceps. So keep up the practice, keep up the hard work, and reach out if you need any extra help, any extra videos, or look out for the mini tricep workout video that I'll be posting as well, which will take you through a short warm-up, specifically targeting shoulders and triceps, and then just a short workout on a mat that will just deal with the upper body.